Disciple Makers Home Church, I talked about that. I'll show that just so you guys know. I did put it on my little icon, my little thumbnail. So it's an evangelical Christian small group and a home discipleship study near Pinellas Park. Pinellas Park's kind of central, so it's just easiest to point to that. Um, but there's people from all over the kind of county that kind of come here. But it's kind of a small group. Um, it's Disciple Makers Church, an evangelical Christian home church, because we are registered as a church in the Missionary Church denomination. If you go to Missionary Church and you look in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, you'll see this church as it's considered a microchurch or a home church as part of their denomination, with myself as the pastor. Connected to another church named Generation Church, and I don't even think I put it on here. It's on my thumbnail. Do I have my thumbnail? Let's see. See if I can pull this up. Bum, 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 bum. Here we go. Let me do this instead. So there's my thumbnail from earlier. I talked about, you can't see my cursor anymore, but right, you've got my logo, Empowered Christian, and then you got Missionary Church, which is the denomination that I belong to, and then Christian Leaders Alliance is the organization that I am ordained through. Then on the bottom left, you have Disciple Makers, right? Home church or discipleship small group. It's a home church or a micro church underneath the Missionary Church denomination in Florida. And then on the right side, it says Generation Church. That is the local church that I belong to in Largo, Florida. And so if you're near Tampa or St. Petersburg or Florida, or you want to come visit, you can come to Generation Church. And the Disciple Makers group is considered a small group under Generation Church. And they know I teach through my book in that small group and so forth. And a lot of the people I've brought to become members of Generation Church as well. And so, there's a little bit of overlap, but I just kind of want to make these distinctions clear. Disciple Makers is not really like a competing church. It's a little small group out of my house. And Generation Church is like a traditional church. And so that it's now a large church. Just 5 years ago, it was only about 120 people. Now I think it's around 1,500, I believe, give or take. And so it's grown very quickly. I am not an official pastor at Generation Church. I am a lay leader in some of the ministries. I serve in leadership on their Belong team, which does evangelism and discipleship, and also on their men's ministry. And I'm also on the pastoral counseling team as a volunteer. And so that's kind of that's kind of my affiliation. Yep. So if you're curious, if you belong to Generation Church and you're wondering how these things connect, they only connect to the degree that the church knows me and trusts me enough to let me be on the counseling team and lets me teach from my book in the small group. But I don't take a salary from there at the moment. And they have their own leadership and eldership board that is responsible for what happens there, and I am not on that board. Okay, so that's how all that works. I just wanted that to be clear. Sometimes people aren't sure just because Missionary Church says church and then Disciple Maker says church, and then I've mentioned Generation Church on live streams and stuff before too. And you're kind of like, what's going on with this? So I like these things. I think it allows me to be connected to a larger organization locally and be a part of like the more traditional church, as well as have the small home church feel that has that more close knit kind of feel to it, and Generation Church actually likes this too. I mean, they were once a small church, and they heavily believe in the life groups and discipleship groups and those kind of things. And so there's like over 40 small groups, and people are encouraged to start and host their own groups and things like that. And so they're not seeing it as a competition, but rather as an important way that people get discipled, which is right on. And so, and Missionary Church is kind of the same thing. I am part of there, and I do I'm part of the Connect Florida team, and we do a monthly meeting, and so I'm recognized as a pastor there, as well as they know I'm a member of Generation Church. Generation Church is not affiliated. They're not a church underneath the Missionary Church either. They're separate. I'm hoping to maybe introduce them at some point. I think there's a lot of common vision, but they're not connected. And so only our ministry is connected.